another month, another tier shift for NU. And of course, if you follow the Twitter, you'll know I said that October 31st Halloween was only actually scary for one thing, and that was that it was the last day Iron Thorns would be Ryu, and you know, it was dropping to NU, and then oh well, let's just look at how right I was. Yeah, so seems we missed a little bit on that, but what's poppin', people? We're gonna be talking about the tier shift today. As always, been enjoying the content. Subscribe right now. Go down there. Go do it, please. We're on our way to 10k subscribers. I need everyone that's not subscribed currently to go down and subscribe. You know what? It's free. You can cancel at any time. Just go do it. As always, I'm gonna talk about the NU related mons first. And then anything that like dropped out of NU, I'll talk about why it dropped out of NU, but things that are actually going into NU or dropping into NU, you know, always find that a little bit more interesting. So first, I'll do these three down here because these are going to be the easiest to talk about, because we know why they're rising back into NU. Or, for Sandslash's sake, rising into NU to begin with. Glast, biggest reason is the success it's had in the Pokemon Champions League. We even had a specific video about a week for SCL where Glass Trade was featured very heavily, and it's simple. Everything that we thought would make Glass really good in NU to begin with when it originally dropped to NU back with the Pokemon Home Mega Shift is finally coming to fruition. It's really bulky, so it's really good at trading with Pokemon. It's really good on offensive teams as well as a result, because it's great at forcing their opponent into taking these very awkward lines where you kind of can figure out what the opponent's method of dealing with Glass is going to be very quickly, because, well, it's not got the biggest pool of defensive answers. And offensively, I mean, okay, you're going to go to the super effective attacker, so something like a Salazzle maybe, or a Toxicroak. Maybe you got a Paldean Tauros. I'm going to press this little Terrastalize button, and I'm, going to flip that whole matchup on its head, and you might not even win it anymore. You've even seen it also succeed, because on not necessarily hyper-offensive teams, but just generally offensive teams, it works really nicely as a countermeasure to the hyper-offense. It's kind of funny, because since Glass is so bulky and still so strong, I mean, hyper offense is not an archetype that's known for having mons that are going to be taking hits well at all. And so what Glass is great for is forcing the opponent to just start, okay, saying, I gotta sack stuff. Because they're not going to be able, odds are, to just one-tap the Glass from full and move on with their day. Maybe if they've got a set-up Pokemon like a Salazzle, they might be able to do something a little bit more practical versus Glass. But generally, from what we've seen in SCL, those hyper-offense teams do not match up very nice in the Glass at all. We saw multiple times people were having to just straight up sacrifice their Decidueye or Jolteon just to trade damage on Glass and revenge kill it with something else. Very nice in a metagame where hyper-offense has been so dominant. Toxicroak rising back into NU as well. I mean, I even said this in a video where it dropped out of NU, where I was like, I couldn't tell you why it dropped out. It's still incredible. I think this is mostly just people realizing, hey, Toxicroak's actually still really good. Probably should be using it instead of just forgetting about it. Big thing as well, and you can see how Hisui and Sneasel actually dropped out of NU, where Toxicroak is back. The biggest reason I would say that Toxicroak has survived and remained great in NU is Gligar is the dominant ground type now instead of Sandaconda. And Gligar is a mon that Toxicroak can actually beat pretty decently, because Ice Punch, very nice move on Toxicroak. So it's Sneasel doesn't actually have a way to hit the Gligar, so even when you Sword Stance up, you're not really beating Gligar per se. You know, you could throw your Terra Grass in there, you might be able to get some damage on it, but you're not going to be beating it. Croak, meanwhile, has knockoff if it wants. It can straight up just cripple Gligar for the rest of the game, help support the rest of your teammates to actually be the ones to take it out. Or as I mentioned, Ice Punch, you could just straight up beat Gligar on your own. So Croak has a lot more agency. And Dry Skin, I've mentioned before how good I think Bruxish is. it's nice to have a Pokemon that can, especially with Terra Dark, just straight up wall Bruxish, but at the very least, block the flip turn pivots, block Wave Crash, make Bruxish have to think a little bit more when it's playing. And it's Sandslash rising up to Inu. Sand teams are really good. Sandslash is, I would say, pretty necessary on sand teams. It offers them an incredible Sword Stance user. It can give you Rapid Spin support if you need it as well. It benefits a lot from Brute Bonnet getting banned, however long ago it was banned, due to just, now I don't have to run Leech Life. Still can, because it's useful in the Pokemon like Rotom Cut and Shaman, but not having to run it, you know, you'd rather have the move slot versatility to run something like Stone Edge instead, or Rapid Spin. And even just utility sets, I have found them to be decent enough. It's kind of like an alternative to something like Gligar, where you trade having the incredible bulk and a little bit more defensive use as well, just through Gligar's typing. You trade that for having Rapid Spin, which I like a lot. And you're not as reliant on your item either. Gligar takes a knock, well, you lose a ton of your bulk. Sandslash takes a knock, well, not great, but you don't mind it as much. So, now let's talk about the mons that are falling back into Inu. And I'm gonna need to remember, actually, let's talk about Grimmsnarl up here first. I think that's gonna be easier, because we did actually lose a mon. Grimm rising up to UU. Apparently, screens are really good in UU, so Grimm rose. This is actually a pretty significant change, because if you want to look at it through the lens of Jolteon, Grimm was one of our best Jolteon deterrents. It was a huge reason Jolt had to run Terra Fairy. Grimm was also great on HO for Inu, not as a screen setter, but instead as a bulk up sweeper. So it loses a tool for HO down here. And it was our only fairy type that was, you know, viable. Again, like I told Eternally, not Doxbun. So that kind of sucks. Thankfully, though, we actually did get fairy types in the shift. Fairy type plus potential, depending on what we do with it, but Grimm leaving will definitely be felt just because the priority of that Terra Dark Sucker Punch was so nice to contain a lot of offensive threats. Now you're probably going to see Toxicroak even more, because its Sucker Punch becomes even more valuable. You'll probably even just keep seeing more Quick Attack Scyther, just again reaffirming how useful it is to have that priority on your team. Maybe even we see a little bit more Lycanroc, like independently of Sand teams, as a standalone wall breaker. The mon is still generally good even without Sand. It just gets truly unlocked with Sand, because now the mon is even just about impossible to revenge kill with how fast it becomes with Sand Rush. But what mons are jumping into NU? Well, we could first talk about these two that are in NUBL, Dreadnought and Florges. Now, Dreadnought I don't think will be getting unbanned. We'll probably vote on it anyway, because it was banned however long ago, a couple months at this point. I don't think the metagame has really changed that much to make Dreadnought any less OP compared to when it originally got banned, but I think due diligence plus the promise of, hey, we will revote on every Pokemon we ban, I'll probably at least mention to my co-TL, hey, let's vote on it anyway, just because people deserve to have it voted on. Florges, on the other hand, we've already talked about a little bit in council chat. I believe it needs to be voted on, and it should just be unbanned, like, period, really without even a vote. Florges was banned way long ago. The metagame is completely different, and although you could say that about some other months like Oricorio Pom Pom that have been banned for a long time and never gotten revoted on, one, I don't even remember if Oricorio Pom Pom has been in UPL at any point since that was, you know, a convenient point for us to actually vote on it, where there was enough time that had passed, and the metagame had changed enough to where you could conceivably see it as balanced. I really don't remember. Something like Florges, though, is obviously very different. When we banned Florges, we didn't have Salazzle, and we didn't have any of the steel types we have now. Now we've got Pokemon like Caparaja and Bronzong, which are very obviously Florges deterrents. That spamming out of Specs Moonblast, that's not as easy to do. CM sets that just run like Moonblast and nothing else to attack, well, those aren't going to be as consistent now. Even some of the techs like Terra Grass, on CM so you can run that flower availability and actually have a viable ability for once. Shoutouts to Florgus being given absolutely nothing to work with in singles. Well, those aren't going to be as good because, hey, there are steals that are going to be posing problems. I think the meta is at least notably different enough. You can even throw Decidueye in there, by the way, as a deterrent, just because if you're talking about the lens, through the lens of a CM set, Decid has enough special bulk to where you could switch in, take a hit, and just poltergeist the heck out of Florgus. So there you go, there's another Mon too. I do think you can still argue about Florgus being OP. I mean, it's a bulky setup Mon, so naturally terastallizing it is going to be really, really effective, especially with Terra Blast, Ground, and Fire. Both of those are going to complicate your counterplay. But, like I said in console chat, I think the metagame being as completely different as it is just necessitates that we do our due diligence and unban Florgus, and at least let it exist in the tier for a little bit, without just deciding, oh, it seems so broken, because I don't think it looks broken enough to keep it banned. I think it might still be broken, sure, but I don't believe we can definitively call it OP. As a result, I definitely think we should be unbanning it. If we do unban it, obviously that's a huge change to Inu. It would be our first genuinely great bulky fairy type since we originally had Florgus. It's another great Calm Mind Mon as well to add to the list of Mons like, say, Dunsparce. Blissey even had been okay as a Calm Mind Mon at points. Usually we're using Calm Mind more to buffer against other special attackers, but hey, Blissey still is not the worst sweeper with it if you want to go that route. Try to think of other Calm Mind. Jolteon. Different gameplay. Of course, Florgus is much more slow rolling with the Calm Mind boost, and you're trying to take the game over slowly, whereas Jolteon could kind of just use Calm Mind to give its Volt Switch on the following turn a little bit more oomph if it needs to. And when you start CMing with Florgus, you're more dedicating to the sweep then and there. So like Jolteon, like we said, you can Volt Switch out if you want. There's no real oh yeah, I gotta set up now and win that idea with Jolteon, unless you're dropping Volt Switch for sub, or even just a third attack. And yeah, all that to say, let's unban Florgus. I want to see it in the tier. And then here are the new mons that dropped to Inu. Now, Drifblim, I'll touch on really quickly. Because from everything I heard from RU, this mon should never have rose to begin with, because it was always bad. Drifblim returns, it'll still be good. I don't think it'll be anything incredible. I think the rise of Grimmsnarl will definitely help it out, because that was a mon that could threaten it, prevent the defogs. That's really about it, though. I mean, Drifblim is still going to benefit a lot from Copperajah not being able to actually really beat it 1v1. You're going to beat Bronzong 1v1 as well. You're going to beat Gligar 1v1. You're able to... It's going to be coming down to EVing and if Gligar runs Taunt or not versus the, those interactions, but it's not a mon that you can't just try and find a way to beat in defog versus. You can always throw off the Wisp. It's going to really eat away at its longevity too, especially if a teammate can get that knot going on it. Chansey's a mon that you're probably not going to want to take these long and extended trades with, but you can at least try to defog. It's not as bad as Blissey, where Blissey could run Shadow Ball and actually threaten your HP stat. Chansey's just T-waving you, and that's annoying for its own reasons, but still playable. But it'll be a fine option. It also gives us another check to Mr. Tauros Paldia Blaze, which I always appreciate. It'll make Toxicroak want to always have knockoff as well. I mean, Ice Punch might actually OHKO at +2 with Life Orb. I'd have to calc. I don't feel like you would OHKO. Anyhow, again, it'll make knockoff Croak be more tempting. Whatever. We knew that. Klefki drops. This is also why I was, if we don't unban Florgus, well, hey, look, we're getting another bulky fairy type, or just a fairy type in general to the tier Klefki. And Keys is a very interesting mon, because we've never had it in Inu before. And wow, does it sound annoying. It's a prankster mon that actually could beat dark types, because it's, you're a fairy, you could run your stab player up for Dazzling Gleam. And although the mon isn't super strong, I mean, that's still going to be doing more damage than, like, say, Sableye's little piss-weak foul play would, or knockoff. Foul play occasionally would do some okay damage, but still, super effective fairy move, a lot better to hit them with. You could even run Calm Mind on it, I'm sure it'll be okay. You got dual screens if you want to go that route. Spikes are already really good in NU, so thankfully we actually got multiple removal options into NU the shift, but Keys is a lot different of a beast when you compare it to something like, say, a Sandaconda that can set up rocks, or even like a bulky Caparage setting up the rocks. Keys is just far more annoying. And that's all because of Prankster. It's able to get those spikes back up, get them up really quickly as well. Spread paralysis, whatever it needs to. You got Magnet Rise to try and avoid certain super effective moves, so you could maybe win some certain exchanges. Gets them on, like, say, a Gligar, you could just Magnet Rise up versus it, and it's not going to be able to do anything to you other than, you know, maybe knock your item, but then it's probably having to force itself out. When we're talking defensively, I mean, it's like, I guess it is a Gujar check. I just don't know if the non-spec sets care. I'm almost certain you just get Fire Blast at the next turn. I mean, Player will do a lot of damage back to Gujar at least. The Mon doesn't have great physical bulk. He probably two-shot. But Gujar's probably going to EV and be a little bit faster. That's going to be an interesting interaction to keep an eye on, frankly. And then otherwise, I mean, there's not a ton of Mons that it's checking. Give me one moment to pull up the VR so I can show you the list. So, Scyther is at least another Mon that you can check. Keys is actually going to be really nice for checking Scyther, which I'm going to obviously appreciate quite a bit. Scyther is an annoying Pokemon, so having something that can just shut it down, that's going to be really nice. I say shut it down, it's not like Scyther's going to be unable to get good damage off, but that common set right now with Terra Normal with Dual Wing Beat, CC, Quick Attack, I mean, that's not beating Klefki, at least not easily. You're going to get T-Waved, you're not going to one-shot it with CC, and you're going to get Foul Played for 5 more billion damage. Like, that's no fun. You check Shaman, you check Mo technically, although it's just bolting on you, so who really cares there? You check Gardecuno, we do check the Dunsparce. I don't really think I'm going to call this a Hoopa check. You switch into a Psychic move. That's about it. But yeah, the pool of Mons that you check, it's not like it's a huge pool of Mons that you're looking at and you're like, oh yeah, this is a Mon that I want my Klefki switching into. But there are a good amount of Mons you at least annoy, which I find valuable. We get ALOLAN SANDSLASH as well, finally. And this might even be one of the more significant tier shift Mons we get. Because if you remember from Sword and Shield NU, we did actually end up banning Slush Rush. And yeah, now we've got Beartic, ALOLAN Slash, and a Bomb Snow, all in the tier once again. Now, we do not have the same type of slow pivoting we did back then when Hail teams were really running the tier. Because we had, you know, back then we had like Flip Turn Dragalge, we had even Flip Turn Vaporeon. Decidueye, although that Mon was running some of these weird, like, physical Swords Dance sets still just to give the team, it was a matter of the defensive utility it gave. But we don't have those same slow pivots now. We'll have to find different ones to use if we want to try out Hail again. Though, I do think it'll still be a pretty decent archetype. I don't know if it'll be ban-worthy once again. I just feel like the power level of this format's a little bit higher than last gen Sword and Shield NU. Though, I'm very... I mean, I could be proven wrong as well. The difference, too, we got Bronzong this time around. I believe we had lost Bronzong to shifts by then. And although Zong doesn't just hard wall the Snowmons because they got coverage, it's still going to be a great check, and it's going to force them to run some otherwise suboptimal coverage. You got something like Assault Vest Hariyama, which at least dissuades the spamming of the ice move. Quillfish is great. Paldean Tauros is great. Piloswine is going to be at least sometimes a check, although I think you'll probably just get reamed by Ironhead from ALOLAN Slash into like CC for Beartic, so it's not really that good of a Mon. But we do have some more checks, at least in this metagame, to those scary ice types. So, I'm cautiously optimistic that we won't have to take action on Snow, and that we could instead just have 2 weather archetypes, those being Snow and Sand, both being in the tier, and not being so problematic that we gotta go, hey, let's ban these now. Because I always think it's fun when you've got viable offensive playstyles that aren't just those me set hazards and me try win now with setup sweep. I think it's nice to have other options. And in Vikavolt, the last drop actually to Inu. This one, honestly, I am probably the most scared of. Like, I'm more worried about Vikavolt than I'm Florges. I just don't know how many mons are realistically checking Vikavolt. It's got Throat Spray now as well. Well, it had it last gen too. But it's got Throat Spray stuff. That could be annoying. I think it probably will end up being balanced, but it's going to have a ton of disgusting looking damage rolls that it gets versus everything. Because, I mean, it's Vikavolt. Mon has 140 some odd base special attack. But the speed's really bad. If I'm remembering the number, it's 43. That's going to be outspent by just about everything. And even the defensive metagame mons, you can't really guarantee Vikavolt's going to be faster than them. Some of them will naturally even outspeed it, but others already run some speed as is. They're not going to be too pressed about having to run more speed. And then just offensively again. The mon isn't super bulky, so I think a lot of mons like our Paldean Tauroses of the world, Slazzles, they're going to still find it pretty easy to dispatch Vikavolt. Really, the questions are going to come what mons tank a hit. If we unban Florges, yeah, Florges could help check. Goodra could help check. Raja could help check. AV Yama could help check. Gligar technically could help check. You just take a lot from, like, Energy Ball. And, I mean, what are you doing back other than going for knockoff, I guess? It's going to be a tough mon to handle. Vikavolt also kind of checked by Hoopla, which I guess, sure. It's just, again, it's going to be a hard mon to check because that Volt Switch is so strong. And this isn't a mon like Jolteon that's going to be wasting turns setting up either. Like, we can compare the trifecta of electric types and how they work real quick. And the trifecta I'm going to look at is Hisuian Electrode, Jolteon, Vikavolt. Hisuian Electrode can't boost, but it's got one of the freest Volt Switches in the tier because it's so fast. So even though it's pretty weak, at the very least, it's not really forced out by a ton and it keeps bolting. Jolteon, the same thing. It's not really forced out by a ton, so it can Volt Switch the whole game. It can also decide to sweep you relentlessly with CM, or even just boost its Volt Switch's damage with CM. Vikavolt, meanwhile, it's probably not going to sweep you. Agility is a set that it can run, but it's not boosting its strength necessarily. It's just going to keep hitting you with this ridiculously strong Volt Switch the whole game, and you got to find a way to play around it. So, I think Vikavolt will probably be contained offensively, much like a Pokemon like Glassed is. However, I mean, I could see maybe we just decide there's not enough defensive counterplay. I think there's enough mons that'll trade with it. Really, it's just the fact this mon's Volt Switch is going to be the biggest deterrent to me wanting it in Inu. I don't think I'll vote ban on it off rip. Thankfully, we don't have to even consider tiering anything till Sunday, which is wonderful. But I definitely think it'll be a mon on our radar. I think really anything that dropped to Inu will be on our radar. Like, if we unban Florges, I think that'll be on the radar anyway, just for the first half week it's back. I think Snow will be looked at. I can even see Klefki getting looked at, because it's Klefki. Like, the mon's got a lot of annoying stuff it does. Maybe some people in Council just don't like that. And I think Vikavolt, because it's really strong. And now we talk about the mons that dropped out of Inu. This won't be too hard to do. Vivillon drops because, I mean, Goodra blocks your Hurricane. Not your Hurricane. God, I wish. Goodra blocks your Sleep Powder. So Vivillon doesn't have as easy of a time just deciding, hey, I'm putting something to sleep, and then I'm going for a Hurricane. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of other, like, fast grass types. So it's not like you've got mons like, say, like Shaman outspeed, so you could even pivot into Shaman on the Sleep Powder. The issue is you're getting KO'd by Hurricane the next turn, which kind of sucks. And then Rotom is just too slow, so you're not really getting to go Rotom on Sleep Powder and doing much. Because Vivillon's probably Sash. So it's going to tank your hit, and it's going to quiver, and if you don't have priority, then you're toast. It's still an okay interaction, at least, because you're not scared of getting Hurricane on to switch in. Like, it'll hurt, but you'll tank at least one. And you still got to throw a Volt Switch next turn. You can even always just Trick if you don't want to risk Vivillon going for Terra Ground versus you, which is okay. But it's just, I think the tier's power level's catching up to Viv at this point. It's just not strong enough. Hisuian Sneasel drops. Basically what I talked about with Croak earlier. It's just Gligar being the best ground now. Really hurts it. Also, regular Sneasel being as good as it is, which is to say it is at least a good mon, hurts Sweet Sneasel because you literally can't use them on the same team. So, Sneasel actually also dropped, but at least with something like Sneasel, I can use that alongside, say, a Paldean Tauros or a Toxicroak. I can't use Hisuian Sneasel, so there's a lot of opportunity costs, because the other fighters are generally better, because they're harder to stop. They don't have mons that you just look at and you're like, oh yeah, this is a hard shut-down option versus my, say, I don't know, Toxicroak. Literally cannot break this mon. This is usually you actually got a few mons like that that really do just make it impossible for the mon to do much. And mag drops, I'm a little surprised, but also not really. I think people just aren't using Magneton much because there's so many other mid-tier wall breakers. There's a lot of electric type options, so you're not really looking at Magneton as this unique guy. It doesn't really offer anything all too special. Analytic Mag is still an incredible mon. It's still just about 2 shots or 1 shots everything in it you. But I mean, I could use that, or I could just use Goodra. And Goodra gives me a lot more defensively. Still to say, it's actually a little bit better speed tier-wise, too. And I think Magnet Pull Magneton might actually be getting looked at as, like, not too good. Because all the Steel types can Terrestrialize if they really need to and just get away from it. But also, you don't one-shot the Steel, so outside of Earthworm, it's not even the most consistent trapper. Now, I talked about this a while ago. I forget what video it was I did it, but I mentioned how Mag is still a good trapper in spite of that, because you don't need to one-shot the Steels when your Volt Switch from like Specs Magneton does so much. But it is still a point worth considering, right? These mods can all trade super effective damage versus you. Raja learns was like Earthquake, Heat Crash. Bronzong gets Body Press. Earthworm gets Body Press. And its most common set actually outruns Modest Magneton. So, there's a lot to consider when actually using the mod and how viable it is at trapping. I still think it's a good mod, but hey, happens. And now we get all the mods we dropped to PU. So this is, is this PU's home shift, or is this just another big shift for PU? I don't know, but they get a million meta-defining mods. I mean, oh my god. Look at the shift for PU. These are all good. These are all going to be good mods, except for a few. Like, Arbalova is going to be a really strong special attacker. It just, we know why I didn't get used to it. There's a whole Goodra there, hello? Like, and a lot of better grass types. I mean, you got Rotom, Mo, Decidueye, Shaman. Even Hisuian Electrode I would take over it. So the competition was just really high. And the mon is not doing a ton unique. That's giving it a reason to be used. Even if you want to look at it like, oh, it checks Decidueye at least, right? No, it doesn't, because you don't do anything back. Just a very uneventful mon. Bombardier finally drops out of NU. I think, honestly, a lot of this had to do with the power level getting to be too high for it. The defensive sets just weren't cutting anymore. And if you're going to go offensive, well, your competition was Grimmsnarl. Shout out to my boy. He's in UU now, though, so we don't talk about him. Regular Sneasel, which, not the most commonly used mon, but really good still. Got an incredible dual stab that's only really walled by Hariyama and Paldean Tauros. It's got priority, it can sweep with sword sets, it can just wall break with CB. I feel like offensive had more that it did. And it doesn't help that Bombardier likes Sneasel for what it's worth. Weak to Stealth Rock, but also reliant on a recoil move to do its damage. I mean, Brave Bird's going to be the move you want to use to actually be doing the most. You've got Knockoff, yeah, but Knockoff ain't as strong as that Brave Bird. So, there's something there. Clawitzer drops. For what it's worth, Clawitzer, again, like some other mons, it's not like it was a particularly bad mon. It hits really, really hard. And we know the story within you. Where's our bulky water types that actually, like, tank special attacks? They're not here. But I think with Clawitzer, it's also a similar situation to Mag, except amplified by the fact that Clawitzer does nothing supportive, except maybe sometimes we're in U-turn. And we haven't seen U-turn Clawitzer this gen whatsoever, so it's been 4 attack specs and nothing else. And if you want a wall breaker to do that, just run Goodra. And Goodra still gives you a ton defensively. It's really just as simple as Clawitzer does not actually offer teams anything other than strength. And in this kind of generation, roll compression is viewed really, really favorably. So when you are looking at the team builder, you usually want a mon to do more than one thing. Unless it's like just a lead hazard setter, where all you know, if you just need hazard setup, it's not really too big a deal if that's all the mon does. Even then, you look at those mods, they still do more, by the way. Lycanroc has Taunt and Accelerock for priority. Frostlass has Taunt and has Speed Control, you know, it's got more. So, all in all, I mean, the mod just, it doesn't do enough. Both Golems drop, I said they would both drop, they did. Regular Golem, I mean, I like lead Custap, but when you've got so many other lead options, hard to necessarily say Golem's gonna be good enough to stick around. Alolan Golem's just an even worse trapper than Magneton, and well, this spawn dropped, so you thought this one was staying? Hell no. Hatcham drops, another like power level moment, but also because the offenses that Hatcham would be good on, I mean, what is it? It's like Manual Sun, which isn't too common, and Trick Room, which is not used at all. And you don't see the CM stuff at all anymore, really, either. Really, I think it's just Hatcham is, again, power level moment, right? It's not bulky enough, and it's not strong enough to have that sweep be successful like it was in the previous metas, where mons weren't just threatening to one-tap you into the Shadow Realm, and you could actually afford to stick around for a while, CM up, then start slowly whittling at teams with your Psyshocks and your Draining Kisses and Mystical Fires. Leavanny drops because, tell me what this mon does. I said Sticky Web, and that is it. And in a metagame with Dual Wing Beat Scyther on just about every team, let's actually see how common that mon is. Oh, Scyther's actually just the most common Inu mon, and look at that. It's almost on every 3 out of 10 teams. Yeah. Yeah, isn't that lovely? I ain't even gonna acknowledge this is at number 6, by the way. That mon is not real. But yeah, it's a real good mon. And Leavanny, kind of just a victim of that mon. Ludicolo drops because Manual Rain's gone nowhere. Muck drops because, I mean, Muck just barely sees any use as is anymore. Knockoff is a cool buff for it, and in theory, it's actually really nice that Sandaconda has fallen off, because getting a knock on, say, Gligar or Piloswine, which are now the 2 best ground types, at least in my opinion, that's really good progress, because those are holding a Violites. They don't want to lose their item, necessarily. I think where Muck falls short is T-Spike isn't actually that important in Inu. I mean, you got stuff like Salazzle, Quillfish, Toxicroak on a lot of teams, so running into another grounded poison is pretty commonplace. And especially defensive poison type just feels like in this gen it's not that useful. I'd rather have a different mon take my special attacks. The physical defensive poison types are the ones that end up being better, so your Quillfishes and Weezings of the world. Because we have a large, myriad of these strong fighting types that are going to punch you in the face. You want your poison to actually take those hits, and oftentimes Weezing kind of just, not Weezing, Muck just kind of ends up being muscled down by them, because it's not bulky enough on the physical side. Earthworm drops, I could not tell you why. I think it's because people want to use specially defensive steals more than physically defensive ones right now. I think Earthworm dropping is a crime. I think this mon's really good. You just pair it with a Chansey, and if we ever get Blissey back, you just pair it with a Blissey. If you want bad Florges, you just pair it with a Florges. Look at that. But yeah, I think people just don't like how Earthworm team building is kind of awkward, because people are used to your Steel type providing you something on the special side, so you can check those Draco Meteors. Earthworm can't. I don't think that stops it from being an incredible mon. It falling to PU is a mistake, and I'll prove it to you all sometime in November with a video titled that. But yeah, I mean, I think really that's all it is too. Earthworm, people are not happy it can't switch into Goodra Dracos. And you know what, that's fine. More Earthworm for me though. Have fun losing, noobs. Passimian drops. I think it's been a long time coming. I don't think Passimian is very good in Inu. But also, let me just go to the VR. Look how many fighting types are ahead of it. Ariama, that's 1. Heracross, that's 2. Paldean Taurus Blaze, that's 3. Toxicroak, that's 4. You got 4 ahead of it, and I'm gonna be honest, I could see Passimian being in the same tier down here as Primeape. Yeah. I just don't think it's very good. And the main reason for it is right now, trying to spam CC to clean with Passimian is pretty hard. And in games that I've seen it used in, you almost always want to be Terra Dark on it. Which just makes it worse, because you can't run the fighting Terra. So you're gonna have a harder time sweeping late. But like, look at Inu. Let's see how many Mons resist that CC. You want to give Scyther free turns? I would say you want to give Lazzle free turns, but honestly, you kind of beat Salazzle if you CC it down. It can't set up versus you. But you know, you're gonna let Gligar in, you're gonna let Quill in, you're gonna keep letting Croak in, you're gonna let Ult in, you're gonna even let Bruxish in. Like, the biggest reason Passimian is bad right now ain't even that other fighting types are better. It's just not that reason. It's Bruxish is just better as a Scarf pivot. Bruxish is faster. Bruxish is stronger, or at least about as strong. It can still pivot. It's harder to wall. When you've got this direct of competition, man, shit sucks. Rotom drops, because Rotom Mow is in the tier. So you literally, I mean, Rotom Mow is just better than regular Rotom. Also, in the games that have used regular Rotom, I do feel like it's just not bulky enough anymore. Even when you want to run these kind of offbeat utility sets like Will-O-Wisp, Hex, Volt Switch into maybe Nasty Plot, maybe go a Terra Blast Fairy, and they just don't feel, you're not strong enough, and you're not bulky enough to actually make them work. And even if I'm running Scarf, like, why am I not just running a Rotom Mow? Why am I not running a Jolteon if I want a fast Electric or a Hisuian Electrode? And well, it's just not that good anymore. Tier got too strong around it. And its Sneasel drops. I'm gonna be honest, since last month when I said, hey, I'd seen more Sneasel lately, it should rise. I've not seen any Sneasel this month. I think part of it's because Grim was just viewed as the better Dark type, so people defaulted to that because it offers a lot better of a resistance. In the Ghost moves, like you could take a Hoopa Shadow Ball a lot better with a Grimmsnarl than you could a Sneasel. Yeah, really just simple as that. But also, when you look at Mons that actually just wall Sneasel, I mean, God, Hariyama and Paldean Tauros are two of the worst Mons to be hard-walled by. In addition, you know, slower than Salazzle, which kind of sucks. You also can't sweep past a Salazzle, because Ice Shard is resisted. And Evict your Bell last. The Mon reliant on Manual Sun being good. Manual Sun's not good enough, so there you go. But that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed. Tier shifts making Inu. Not honestly, tier shifts didn't change Inu's outlook a ton, I don't think, with how it'll look as a tier. But we did get some potentially very defining Pokemon, and I mean, hell, we lost one of our most defining. Grimmsnarl was top 5 in usage. So it'll be interesting to see what Inu looks like in a post-Grimmsnarl, potentially plus Florges metagame. I hope y'all are around for it, because I know I sure will be. And hey, I'll be definitely playing PU too with some of these heavy hitters. You best believe it. I hope y'all enjoyed your day, though. I'll catch you next time. Tomorrow's SCL, so we'll have some fun then. Peace.